On defense, Anthony Weaver, he's the third person to hold this title in 3 seasons, with Josh Boyer being fired after the 2022 season. Vic Fangio parting ways after the team, finished the 2023 season last year. With Boyer and Fangio, their philosophies pretty much differed a lot. Boyer wanting a zero blitz whenever he wants to, wanting to send the blitz, be exotic. Fangio is more rigid, but his philosophy does work. We did generate pressure. He did time the blitzes correctly. I do like that. He timed them at the right moments. But like I said, Fangio's defense always puts teams in field goal range. I did not like that. Weaver knows what he's talking about when it comes to defense. I know that for sure because especially when it comes to that defensive line, because he's played defensive line both for the Ravens and the Texans. He's 6'3", played left defensive end at around 290 pounds. He coached both of the same teams that he played for, which is, both had renowned Pro Bowlers on there, from Super Mario Williams to Jarrett Johnson, Abrayo Franklin, Ed Reed, Bart Scott. He's played with a lot of good players, and coached some. From 2003 to 2005, he produced 95 solo tackles, 11 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries, and 19 tackles for loss. Baltimore, that was the team he was on. Brian Billick he was the head coach. He had Ray Lewis on the squad. He had Ed Reed on the squad. But they had Kyle Boller as their quarterback, who he was a backup, for the most part. He started with the Ravens. He did okay, but he's a classic example of a quarterback who could throw the ball 70 yards down the field on his knees, but he can't read a defense to save his life. And he'll blow the game throwing an interception to the wrong team, and he just couldn't carry them to a Super Bowl. The defense had to carry them. And they defense didn't mind doing it. That was their calling card. That's how they won Super Bowl titles. When Trent Dilfer was on the center, all he had to do was just manage the game. Jamal Lewis was toting the rock. And speaking of Lewis, he was still on the roster and still productive. So Coach Weaver, he knows that philosophy of ground and pound. That's where he comes from. When you look at that Baltimore coaching staff, they had Rex Ryan. Like I said, that was his position coach. He had Mike Nolan. That was his defensive coordinator. Phil Zacharias. Mike Singletary was the linebackers coach, inside linebackers. Donnie Henderson was the defensive back coach. Dennis Thurman. Those are all 46 Bear defensive coaches, who know that Buddy Ryan system of blitzing. So we might see a lot of that, and I'm glad. Let's blitz the hell out of teams as much as we can, because those 46 Bear fronts, those are tried and true. So it's going to work with us. And when he did call plays as a defensive coordinator, he had 1 year where he called for the Texans in 2020 as a defensive coordinator. It wasn't that good. I'm not going to lie. And I am concerned about that, because the team finished 4-12. That was the year that Tua was actually drafted. Houston traded DeAndre Hopkins. I think we traded Tunzel to their squad. Actually, we traded Tunzel to their squad. They finished 26th in point differential, 30th in total yards, and 32nd in takeaways. Terrible numbers, But at the same time, when you look at their roster, they ain't had nobody on their roster. They had Keon Crossland on their roster. They had Brennan Scarlett on their roster, who was on our team. So they ain't had nobody but they all they had was the Watt. They just had Watt, JJ Watt. That was it. But there's 5 options that I like that we can add in free agency to help our D-line. And I ain't gonna lie, when I look at the defensive options that are out there in free agency, Christian Wilkins, I'm not gonna lie, he can get big money, man. He can get big money because he's in the top 10 when it comes to tackles and sacks out of the available free agents. But there's a lot of players that are available that we can get as well. We got a lot of options, so we did add Davion Nixon, but I think we need more depth. So I would add another in free agency. I would use free agency and the draft to address the defensive tackle position if Christian Wilkins were to walk. We could do it in free agency, but I would prefer the draft because I think we need to go younger on the D-line. But my top 5 options are defensive tackle Mike Holtz. I think that's how you say his name. Defensive end Chase Young. AJ Espinosa. He's also a defensive end. Yetur Gross-Matos. And Jonathan Greenard. So there's 1 defensive tackle and 4 defensive ends that I have. I don't think Chase Young's going to be available. Greenard's probably not going to be available. They probably going to get signed or tagged. But because I think teams would be stupid to, the Texans would be dumb. The 49ers, I think they should keep Chase Young there because he played with Bosa in college. Why break that up? Y'all went far in the playoffs. Just keep him on the squad. But if he available, Chase Young, we should try to get him. AJ Espinosa and Gross-Matos, we should keep our eyes on them because they'll be good options as for depth.